Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the EOB Podcast. I am your host, Ben No. And remember to check out my Twitter. Let's see. Last weekend, we have the release of three wide releases, the biggest of which is Deadpool 2, the sequel to, I believe, 2006's Deadpool, a character in the X-Men universe. Let's see how that movie and the rest did at the box office. And also this week we have the release of Solo, a Star Wars story, which is the spin-off focusing on the character Han Solo before he met up with Luke Skywalker and started off the Avengers, which saw the group take care, going against the the dark side and the the Republic in that universe. So we'll see what the pronunciation for that movie is. But before we get to that, let's jump right in to the box office. So coming in at number one is obviously Deadpool 2. It pulled in 125 million over the weekend, which is about 7 million less than the first movie. The first movie opened to about 132 million. It surprised everyone, the first movie did, because the movie was made for about 58 million. It was in development hell for a long time. Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller, both the director of the first movie, they tried to bring this movie Deadpool to the big screen, but Fox Fox is hesitant about it because they wanted to make an R-rated movie, an R-rated Deadpool, and R-rated superhero movie is a tough sell to the studio brass because, hey, why limit your audience? Because they view the superhero movies as movies for the general audience. For children, and their thinking is like, why would adults want to watch a movie for kids? And that's their viewpoint. And they pulled through. They got their budget, even though it's less at 58 million. It's like less than all the other superhero movies. They didn't want to dump that Fox. They didn't want to dump that much money, that big of a budget into an R-rated superhero movie. And the movie came out. Boom! It blew out everyone's expectation at to 132 million. It proved that an R-rated superhero movie could work, and it did work. Beyond anyone's wild imagination. I think Ryan Reynolds and even Ryan Reynolds and Tim Miller didn't expect it to open that huge. And the first movie became the highest opening R-rated movie ever. It proved that R-rated superhero movie could work, and it did. All right, now we have the sequel. Tim Miller is out. Replacing him as a director is David Leitch. He was, a second unit director. He did stunt work. He was a producer, but he made his directorial debut with that Charlize Theron action movie, Atomic Blonde, which I believe was released, I think last year or maybe, or earlier this year. As an actioner, low budget actioner. I believe it did okay, but anyway, he got the job for Deadpool 2, and before all the hubbub, people were thinking that this movie could open to like 150 million. That's what the movie was tracking to open to, and when the Friday figures came in, it opened, it had like a 53 million Friday, in addition to the Thursday figures, the 2 days blend in, for Friday openings, they usually open it on a Thursday evening. They blended two number in 53 million Friday figure, and if that number holds, it could actually beat out the first movie. But hey, for some reason, it fell short. It only pulled in 125 million over 3 days. I mean, which is still pretty good. The 125 million is actually second best opening for an R-rated movie. Just below the first Deadpool movie. So you could say that it didn't perform as well as the first movie. If you're holding up to the first movie, right? That movie just blew out everyone's expectation because nobody ever kind of like saw that kind of movie before, right? Before superhero movies, they're like PG-13. There's not a lot of bloods and guts, decapitations, whatever, gunshot wounds, foul languages, and they have it in this movie in Deadpool, and the movie also didn't take itself too seriously. It pokes fun at itself. It pokes fun at the genre. It pokes fun at the X-Men universe. And so the first movie became like the highest grossing movie, in the X-Men universe, beating out that latest one, X-Men. Let me take a look. Beating out even the mainline X-Men movies, the X-Men: The Last Stand. It beat out X-Men: Days of Future Past. So for a movie that, for a character that people didn't really have high hopes for, but it was able to kind of like blew out the expectations of everyone. It doesn't, like superhero movies doesn't have to be family friendly. It doesn't have to be serious. It can be fun. It can poke fun at itself, and the Deadpool is able to differentiate itself from the other superhero movies. So I guess people saw that and able to have a 132 million opening. But in the second movie, we expected the movie to be higher, to open higher, since typically when the first movie does well, the second movie, I guess the halo effect from this for the second movie, or the goodwill carry over to the second movie. But I guess Deadpool 2 ran into the juggernaut that is Avengers: Infinity War, because hey, they target the same crowd, and again, you can only do things once, I believe. The first movie was a surprise, and I guess people are saying, hey, do we want more of the same? And I guess reviews or kind of trending that way, kind of like it's like the first movie, but except maybe a bit better. But hey, story wise, I believe Infinity War has it beat, and maybe that's why the second movie didn't open as well as the first movie. I guess kind of people saw kind of what it is, what it has to offer, and they're weighing the two between maybe Infinity War and Deadpool, and I guess that's why the Infinity Wars is still holding on so well, and Deadpool, hey, open to 125 million, and 125 million is nothing to scoff at. It's just that from the first movie, that's where the disappointment set in. If they say that this Deadpool 2 will have a 125 million opening, I think people are happy, because I think it's just the expectations are kind of like or kind of disproportionate to expectations because of how well the first movie did. And the budget for the second movie, Deadpool 2, obviously is higher, 110 million, and the opening is not as good, but hey, that's to be expected, because I guess they underpaid for the first movie, and now they're making it up for the second movie, and I'm pretty sure that they are very happy with 125 million opening, but it's just that disappointing in relations relative to the first movie. So hey, I'm sure Fox is happy. They have a character they can build a franchise of, and before the movie opened, Deadpool went on to all the talk show hosts. It has all this big promotion. It was, I believe he was in NBA games as well. He was photobombing DVD covers. There's a carpet bombing everywhere you can see Deadpool, and there you go. Maybe that promotional is successful, to tell the audience, potential audiences, that hey, Deadpool is back. And we'll see how well the movie holds on the second weekend, because hey, there is also another superhero movie in theaters, although it's already in its fourth weekend, but we'll see. But then again, we have Solo this weekend, so it might be there might be some competition, a lot of competition, in theaters. All right. Let's see, what else can we say about Deadpool 2? It has a 84% on the tomato meter, which is pretty good for a superhero movie, right? Recently, when Marvel took over, the superhero movie genre is rejuvenated. Reviews are typically in the 80s and 90s, and Deadpool 2 is is within that line. That means the genre is it's healthy. And a cinema score, so audience love it, critics love it, and 125 million is nothing to scoff at. All right, and overseas, it's it's doing very well. It hasn't opened that wide overseas yet. 176 million overseas for a total of 301 million worldwide, and expect it to grow. Expect the numbers to grow overseas, but not that high, because I believe the movie might still be censored in China because of its rating. Okay, or maybe they did. You have to find out to see if this movie will open in China or not, because it is a huge market for Fox. So, but we'll see. We'll see on the second movie if it's able to get entry into some of those forbidden countries. All right. Let's move on to number 2, Avengers Infinity War. It fell from the top spot. As expected, we knew Deadpool 2 was huge, right? But it's just how huge. I was projecting, an opening of 145 million because I believe, in the halo effect from the first movie. But hey, it fell short. Okay, I guess a lot of people were wrong as well. All right, moving on to Avengers Infinity War. It pulled in 28.7 million over the weekend. And its fourth weekend drop off is about 54%. Domestic gross is nearing 600 at 595 million. And worldwide it's at 1.8 billion. 1.8 billion. I think good enough for let's see where it stands on the all-time list. Let's see, all-time for worldwide. Yes, so on the all-time worldwide list, Infinity War is at number 4. So it's only behind Avatar, Titanic, and Star Wars The Force Awakens at 1.8 billion. It might even surpass Star Wars The Force Awakens in a couple of weeks, because it's still pulling in numbers overseas, but domestically it fell behind, because in domestic The Force Awakens has, I think, 936 million for domestic, and of Infinity War only had 595 million thus far. So we'll see if it can move up the ladder to beat out Star Wars The Force Awakens when it's all said and done for Avengers Infinity War. Hey, the movie's only in its fourth weekend. It might not be on the same level domestically as the Star Wars The Force Awakens, but hey, it could prove huge, bigger overseas. But we'll see. All right, let's move on to number 3, which is one of the new releases last weekend, Book Club, a movie starring Jane Fonda, Diane Keaton, Cadence Bergen, Mary Steenburgen, a couple, friends who form a book club. It's a movie about, women in their advanced age, trying to, or discovering, or rediscovering, or rekindling that feeling when they were young, about love, finding romance, etc. And I guess the plot started that off when someone brought in, the 50 Shades of Grey books. And things start, I guess, and then the rock, started rolling from there. Characters, there was some of the women met some of their old flames, rekindle what they had. A married couple, tried to, rebuild the relationship. I guess it got too familiar, and they're trying to spice things up a bit. So that's the story there. Review wise, the movie wasn't that well reviewed, only about 59% on Rotten Tomatoes last I checked, at A- cinema score. So, and I said in the previous podcast, this movie is counter-programming, is targeted toward the the older women audience. And I said this movie, the target audience normally wouldn't usually rush out to watch movies on their opening weekend, I guess. But this movie proved me wrong, right? It pulled in 12.5 million over the weekend. I said the movie could open to about 5 million, mainly because I said, of the said reason that the target audience wouldn't rush out. But hey, it pulled in 12.5 million, so I was kind of off there. We'll see how well it does in the second weekend. It could be one of these movies where it's front loaded. And it'll drop huge the second weekend, but it might linger in theaters, right? But the review wise, it's decent, not fresh, on the Rotten Tomatoes parlance, right? It's 59%. It could, with a couple of reviews here and there, it could overcome the 60% threshold for a fresh movie. But it's one of these movies which my people might want to watch. Wait for video. And again, I said this movie. I said in the preview that people might not be that interested. I could be wrong. I was wrong. With the opening figure, I could be wrong again. But my feeling is that, hey, again, people might not be in that much of a hurry to watch this movie, and they might want to wait for video. But hey, we'll see in the second weekend to see if I'm right or not. All right, let's go to number 4, Life of the Party. It's the collaboration between Melissa McCarthy and her husband Belle Falcone. They co-wrote the movie together. Ben Falcone directed the movie, and this is, I believe, the third collaborations between the actor and director. The previous was The Boss and Tammy. Those previous 2 movies, they're decent. Despite poor reviews, but they didn't open as well as previous Melissa McCarthy comedies when she worked with, I guess, directors that are not her husband. All right. So for Life of the Party, I said the movie could have a 20 to 25 million opening, but I was wrong. It only did about 18 million opening, which is kind of there, right? But I think Melissa McCarthy and Belle Falcone, they kind of like search for projects where they can work together. And typically their collaborations aren't that well reviewed. Their grosses tend to be lower than her bigger hits. And this one is another one. It's kind of like the lowest Melissa McCarthy starring comedy in her filmography. So as you can see, their collaborations together, their openings are getting lower and lower, resulting in this one, the lowest one yet. But hey, the comedy, I believe the budget is low, so it's still gonna make money at the box office, since the budget is low. But again, when you compare to her other comedy hits, it's not quite there, right? But then again, I think it's not that important, because I think the reasoning for this movie is because for Melissa McCarthy and her husband to work together, and for that, I think it did its job. Let's see if it opened overseas yet. It did, but not that wide. It only pulled in about 5 million or 6 million overseas for a total of 36 million worldwide. So we'll see how well it does overseas, mainly because comedies don't usually travel well overseas. Cultural differences, language barrier, etc. So it's going to be one of the lower Melissa McCarthy stars. But hey, again, if the budget's low enough, they're gonna make money when it comes to home video, streaming, etc. Since Melissa McCarthy is a draw as a comedy, one of the rare comedies, I guess, in her filmography that is not rated R, it's rated PG. Guess they're trying to appeal to a wider group, and we'll see. They're not gonna stop working together. They're gonna continue on. But if the box office continues to drop like that, they might take the hint and say, hey, let's do things, separately. But this is something that they did together. All right, number 5. Let's move along. Is Breaking In. It's the thriller starring Gabrielle Union. She plays his mom, whose father just recently passed away. He left her this house, this high-tech house. She took her kids, son and a daughter, to the house, and bad guys showed up, and they became a prisoner in this high-tech house. The bad guys hold their kids hostage, and then she just became the super mom, taking on these bad guys. And it opened better than my projection. I said the movie could open in the about 5 million, but it did better than that. It opened to about 17.6 million, way better. But in its second weekend, it dropped about 63% as expected. Usually these movies target toward the African American audience. They have it's really front loaded. They rush out to watch the movie, and then a second weekend, huge drop off, and 63% is kind of within line of the drop off for these movies. So, but in the second weekend, it's about 6.5 million for a total of 28.7 million. But the budget is low, only about 6 million. So hey, it's doing pretty well. It looks the movie, while it doesn't look that good. I said in the preview that production value is not high, and with a 6 million budget, it kind of looks it. So I guess that's why the production value is not that high. But hey, I guess for Gabrielle Union's name alone, I guess that bring in the people, the audience. And I also said that in previous movies, Gabrielle Union was in an ensemble. She wasn't kind of like the lead actress. This is one of the rare ones where she is. This movie is all on her, and hey, it proves that at least right now, she can bring them in, right? So hey, if she decide to lead another movie, to star in another movie, breaking in proves that she can pack them in, even though it's front loaded, but the budget is low enough that hey, the movie's going to be profitable. All right, number 6, moving on, is Show Dogs. Kind of a disappointment to me because I expected this movie to do better. I expect a 10 to 15 million opening because it's targeted toward the family audience. It's directed by who is it directed by? It's directed by the same guy who did Beverly Hills Chihuahua, The Smurfs, Scooby-Doo. Let me look up the name right now. Raja Gosnell. So he did those movies pretty much, live action with CGI characters, a mix. And this Show Dogs is in line with that, with talking dogs, talking animals, anchored by Will Arnett, who plays a cop. He enlisted his partner, a dog, voiced by Ludacris, the rapper, to track down, the smuggled panda, at a dog show. I said this could do well, mainly because it's targeted toward the audience. It has talking animals, and judging by the previous movies that he did, like the Smurfs, Scooby-Doo, etc., it could appeal. But no. It only opened to 6 million, maybe because the advertisement is not there, maybe because it is distributed by a company called Global Road. Not a, could be one of these independents, or it could be, or one of the big studios didn't want to put their name on this movie, or it's basically it's financed and produced and financed by outside money, outside the studio system. So 6 million. So disappointing to me because I thought it would target the family audience and animals. It's always a good bet, right? And the production value looks good. But for some reason or another, right, Show Dogs didn't cut it at the box office. Maybe it's the poor reviews, 23% on Rotten Tomatoes, right? A- cinema score is decent. People who saw it loved it, but or liked it at least. But they have to go out and watch it in the first place, and maybe the awareness is not there, or it could be that they might want to watch some other movies, like Infinity War or others, right? All right, let's go to number 7, which is occupied by Overboard, a remake of the Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn 1987 comedy of the same name, except the roles were switched, starring Eugenio Derbez and Anna Faris. So Derbez plays this rich stuck-up guy, Anna Faris is, this poor-working woman who's got fired by the best's character while she was cleaning his yacht. She fell overboard, or he fell overboard, and has amnesia, and she want to take revenge on him and pose as his wife with kids. And she put him to work, and I guess they hit it off. The movie pulled in 4.7 million in its third weekend. The movie opened to about 14.7 million, which is higher than my projected 10 million, because I thought that because of Avengers Infinity War still in theater, but hey, it did better than my projections, if only a little bit. And it continues to stay in theaters. It's a decent comedy. Like, the budget is not high, and the 37 million domestic take so far is kind of in line with the best's other comedies. Low budget, but they pulled in about 40 to 50 million, and they're decent size hits, modest hits. All right, so let's move on to number 8. Is A Quiet Place. I said A Quiet Place is this year's kind of Get Out, but not on the same level. It's a horror movie that came out of nowhere. Nobody expected this movie to open to 50 million. It caused a buzz at the film festivals, but no one expected 50 million opening. Maybe in the teens, but not 50 million. And it continued to hold on well, right? The drop off even in the seventh weekend is only about 37%. And domestic gross right now is 176 million. And let's see, worldwide it's at 296 million on a budget of 17 million. So like I said, a low budget movie that managed to hit it big at the box office, became the sleeper hit of 2018. All right, let's move on to number 9. Rampage is the Dwayne Johnson movie that's very loosely based on a video game, about giant ape that went on, or giant creatures, an ape is in there as well, that went on to save the world along with Dwayne Johnson's character. He's a zookeeper. That ape got experimented on. Of course, the ape's name is George, obviously, right? Curious George. Apes among simians. They team up to save the world from other giant creatures. It didn't do as well as his previous special effects action adventure movie, Jumanji, but it held its own. Right now it's pulled in about 1.5 million in the 6th weekend, 92 million domestic, but the budget is 120. But hey, worldwide is where it's at. Overseas it pulled in 314 million for a total of 406 million, worldwide. So, huge overseas, budget is 122 million. Domestic take might not be as good, but hey, it got saved at the overseas box office, right? So there's go, another Dwayne Johnson hit. And let's close out the 10th place with RBG. Is a documentary by about the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I believe that's the name. It popped up in the top 10 last weekend. In 10th place as well. It pulled in about 1.3 million over the weekend. It expanded. It added additional theaters, and the box office actually went up, right? This is in its third weekend of release. So domestically it's at 3.9 million. So I didn't expect a documentary about Ruth RBG to do as well as it did. I thought the movie would just pop up in the top 10 and fell off. But hey, there it goes. Our Supreme Court Justice, a movie about her, and it's doing actually pretty well. Okay, so that's it for the top 10. Let's move on to the new release this weekend, the lone wide release. And that is Solo, a Star Wars story. So it is a spin-off in the Star Wars universe, mainly focusing on Han Solo before he teamed up with Luke Skywalker tell before he met the princess. If this is him in his I guess salad days, when he like plays this rogue smuggler, and his adventure with Lando Calrissian. The movie's directed by Ron Howard, starring Aiden Ehrenreich as Solo, Donnie Glover as Lando, Emilia Clarke is here, Woody Harrelson, Andy Newton, Paul Bentley. So good supporting characters in this movie. As we know, it's a spin-off, right? It doesn't mean that it's a second-class citizen, because Rogue One proved that even though it is a spin-off as well, it actually did pretty good, right? Rogue One, we thought it might not have that high of an opening, but it did. Rogue One opened to 155 million, which is kind of like the third highest in the new Star Wars, trilogy universe, or whatever you say. It's like, post George Lucas. It's the third highest at 155 million opening, right? We only have 3 so far. And went on to make 532 million domestically and 1 billion worldwide. So don't take this as a spin-off, take this kind of as a mainline movie as well. So, and Solo is one of these beloved characters, and his story, this is his backstory. One of the most beloved characters. His character got killed off in the I guess the Force Awakens, right? And now he's back in his own story in his younger days. And I believe Ehrenreich, I'll call him Al, kind of hits the right notes. If you look at the trailer, his voice kind of sounds like similar to Harrison Ford, and Donnie Glover, kind of got the mannerism right for Lando. So there's a lot of things to like about this movie. Reviews right now. Do we have reviews? Yeah. We have reviews for Solo already. 71% at Rotten Tomatoes so far. Solo, as of right now, only has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes, so which is kind of like the lowest of the new Star Wars movies. But this is Han Solo. His character is huge, and for people who might not be fan of The Last Jedi, they might like this movie more because it's more action adventure. It doesn't have this preachy overtone about right and wrong, the Force, or whatever, right? This is just Han Solo in his rogue days, when he was a smuggler. So I expect this movie to actually do better, to open higher than Rogue One. And it could be, in the same, could be on the same level as the Star Wars movie. So I expect this movie to probably have a 200 million opening, 200 million plus opening, could be, right? Because since this is Han Solo, very popular character in the Star Wars universe. All right, let's see how well I did when the movie opens. So tune in next week. Until then, bye bye.